News Corp navigates scandal with the help of a seasoned political fighter. I'm Catherine Rampell, reporting for Business Day Live. We'll be talking to Annie Lowrey about a shift in the economic relationship between France and the United States. And Quentin Hardy is here to talk about the verdict in a patent fight that involved Google's operating system. But first, Joel Klein is a familiar name to many New Yorkers for his former role as schools chancellor here. But what they may know less about is his position as a trusted advisor to Rupert Murdoch. I'm joined by Amy Chozick from our media desk.
Hello.
Hi, Amy. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
So what was Joel Klein brought in initially to do for News Corp?
Well, Rupert Murdoch and Joel Klein became close when he was still chancellor of New York City schools. They talked a lot about their vision for revolutionizing schools through technology. This is something that Klein championed while working for the New York City mayor, and he still is very important to him. And Rupert Murdoch brought him in to lead their private education effort. They acquired a company called Wireless Generation that makes technology for schools, and Joel Klein was supposed to build a team and develop these technology tools for public schools.
So how has his role evolved in
well,
the last couple of years?
Yeah, 6 months after he joined the company to lead this education effort, all the scandal in the UK erupted with the phone hacking at News of the World tabloid. So he kind of evolved into this trusted advisor to Rupert Murdoch, one of his closest advisors, preparing him for parliamentary hearings, advising him on legal issues. And
but he's a New Yorker. Why was he helping with advice on parliamentary hearings in the UK?
Well, you have to remember Joel Klein helped the Clintons navigate Whitewater. He helped Ruth Bader Ginsburg prepare for her hearings. He was an antitrust, the head of the antitrust department at the Justice Department. So he's a very seasoned advisor for all things political and legal. And so he just, evolved into this role, but it's really kind of taken him away from what he came there to do.
And in addition to being sort of a PR advisor, he's also leading, or has been leading, this internal investigation into the whole wiretapping scandal.
And that's caused some criticism from shareholders who have said, how can someone who's making, according to SEC filings, $4.5 million a year or more from working for Rupert Murdoch, to also lead the independent investigation. Although the British Parliament has said that they do believe that investigation has been independent, it has raised some eyebrows among shareholders.
And what's happening right now with the whole education effort? Now that Klein has been had this little detour.
Yes, well, he spends about 2/3 of his time on education now, the rest on related to the UK investigations. He's assembled kind of a team of some of the biggest names in education policy, both from New York and the rest of the country, and they've been kind of trying to lead his efforts, without him there full time. And they've made some progress, but they've also had some setbacks. New York City canceled a $27 million contract with Wireless Generation, that's News Corp's technology company, in light of the ongoing investigation in the UK. So they're going to face some hurdles.
All right, well, thanks, Amy, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
When it comes to economic policies, the White House may find it has a new friend in Paris. Annie Lowrey joins me from our Washington bureau to talk about the policies of the newly elected French president, François Hollande. Annie, thanks very much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
So, Sarkozy, the outgoing president, was known as a good friend to America. I believe in France they referred to him as Sarko the American. And now that he's going out, is that bad news for the United States' relationship with France?
Well, Sarkozy was one of the United States' closest allies on economic and especially foreign policy and defense issues. He was also just well known in Washington. He's been here dozens of times. He's dined very closely with the president. Virtually nobody in Washington really knows François Hollande. He's a little bit of a black box still, and a lot of the policymakers I've been talking to have never actually even met him. But that said, he's actually a little bit more closely aligned with the U.S.
In what way?
Worried. So the U.S. has been very worried that these European governments will cut their budgets too quickly and will actually worsen their double-dip recession. So they've been advising them to maybe back off a little bit. Hollande campaigned on the exact same thing. He's been pushing against the austerity that's been essentially led by Sarkozy and Angela Merkel, who's the Chancellor of Germany.
So other than sort of an ideological alignment, that Hollande seems to believe the same set of economic principles that our leadership does, how might this actually affect the United States?
So, it will make the United States a little bit more comfortable. The United States has been, and the White House has been very, very worried that the crisis in Europe would spill over and hurt the U.S. financial system, hurt U.S. trade, hurt U.S. companies. That really hasn't happened as badly as it could have, in no small part because American companies have had a lot of time to respond to the crisis in Europe, to kind of insulate themselves from it. But they would like to see more growth in Europe, and that would help the global economy. Europe is the biggest trading partner to China, for instance. So a stronger growing Europe would help that country with its growth. So it would just be good for the world economy and the minds of the U.S. if they had a little bit more growth. And Hollande is seen as pushing in that direction. He's also, he's also not seen as a firebrand. He's seen as a very conciliatory, consensus-driven guy. And so I think that the U.S. is looking forward to working with him in that sense. They don't know him as well as Sarkozy, but I think that they're planning to build a strong ally with his government.
Thanks, Annie, very much for joining us.
Thank you.
And finally, a jury delivered a verdict in a copyright fight between Google and Oracle. That lawsuit threatened to slow the growth of smartphones using the Android operating system. Quentin Hardy joins me now from our technology desk. Quentin, thanks very much for coming in.
It's good to be here.
So what exactly was this lawsuit over, and what were the stakes?
Look, you could see this as kind of a battle over the future. On the one hand, you have Oracle, which over 30 years has built these enormous databases that power many, many companies, governments, all sorts of things. But because of an acquisition, it also owns the Java software language, which helps computers talk to each other, different kinds of computers. And because of that, it's critical for how the internet works. Now, Oracle, they sued Google, which had built the Android operating system, saying that there were parts of Java inside Android. This is huge because Android is inside billions of smartphones. It's the most popular smartphone operating system in the world.
So if Oracle were to win this,
right.
That would mean what?
If Oracle wins this, well, it costs Google money, it costs Google prestige, and most important, it may give Oracle a say in future versions of Android, kind of a toehold in the smartphone world. And if Google wins it, it resolves a certain issue around cloud computing, how big computing systems that span the global talk to each other, and what the copyright rules are inside that.
So there was a partial verdict yesterday, right?
So the winner turns out to be the lawyers. This was a copyright phase where, the jury decided, yeah, Google did this part of it, which amounted to 9 lines of code where there was a copyright violation.
Okay.
The actual earnings for Oracle are going to be minuscule, far less than their costs when you come down to it.
So how burdensome is whatever penalty Google might face?
Time will tell. We move into a patent phase, and then the judge declares around some issues called what constitutes fair use of software. That all gets resolved in the next weeks or months. And it's not great optics for Google, though.
Right. Well, yeah, especially now that Google is trying to expand its global footprint. And
Google's trying to be in everything, and that's their nature. They're very good at organizing information, and everything is information. Now, this trial revealed emails where they went to pretty heroic efforts to keep away from Oracle and Sun, which developed Java originally, what they were doing exactly. So that doesn't look so good. And coming on the wake of a few other PR problems they're having around their behavior, they didn't need this theater.
So what is Google's next step? What's their plan at this point?
Oh, Google already announced that today they'll file for a mistrial. There was some activity around the jurors that might give them grounds to have an appeal. I see this going on for quite a while.
Well, Quentin, it sounds like we'll have you back in the near future.
Stay at ringside.
Thanks. That's all for today. Please stay with us online at nytimes.com for our continuing coverage of this and other stories. I'm Catherine Rampell, reporting for Business Day Live. Thanks for watching.